We have many more colors, many more shades. So can you capture that? To find out a better definition, I started looking at various other disciplines. For example, I started looking at psychology. So they are also trying to understand the same thing, but with different terminology. They are trying to understand human being in much better way. Then I started looking at sociology as well. They are also trying to understand the societal sentiment, how people interact with each other, what are the rules, what are the grammars, why people interact with each other, what kind of interaction they do, and so on. And then we started borrowing those models into NLP. So the first model we bring into is the personality model. So the personality model has a definition of 5 dimensions: openness, conscientiousness, extrovert, agreeable, and neurotic. Conscientiousness people who like everything to be in order. Let's say Mr. or Miss Perfect kind of people who like everything in perfect order. Extrovert possibly to understand, agreeable also to understand, neurotic people nothing but the sentimental people. Either they are very happy, very sad, very anxious. So they are on the high of the sentiment. Also this model says we can actually go into much deeper scale of analysis. We can really go into this level up, we can go to this level, and so on. So much granular hierarchical analysis we can do. But as of now, the availability of data is very, very limited. So therefore, we are not going to that much classification, but possibly in future is possible. And also in computational system, if you have multi-class, very multi-class dimension problem, accuracy will go definitely down. Then we started then, and in my opinion, although no psychologists say that, personality model could be described as a personal level sentiment. We can categorize people in this category and can say, okay, this is the sentiment of that particular guy. Then we started understanding societal sentiment. And we bring a model called values and ethics from sociology. The model is written by Swartz in 1990. Again, he edited the model in 2000. So it has 10 dimensions, starting from benevolence, universalism, conformity, and so on. So it has 10 dimensions. And again, in this model, we can go into much deeper scale. Granular scale, we can find out what is the deeper understanding people had about the society. Swartz also defined all these 10 dimensions. We can define them as from more negative to more positive. Let's say benevolent universalism as the more positive. Let's say Nelson Mandela or let's say Malala Yousafzai, those kind of people are here, benevolent or universal, who think about everybody and so on. And power achievement oriented people who only seek power for them, achievement for them, and so on. And also these 10 classes could be categorized into 4 bigger groups. Let's say these groups are focusing more about their personal belongings, and this group are talking about more societal focus. They care about society, their surroundings, and so on. So with this definition, we wanted to create NLP models which can actually look into somebody's social media profile and categorize them into these classes. So to do that, we started collecting data. Have you heard crowdsourcing Amazon mechanical turk kind of setup before? So we started crowdsourcing the data. So how it works in psychology or sociology, there are certain kind of survey questionnaire which is being given to people. They have to answer those questions. From those questions, we are getting their personalities, values, and so on. So this is one example questionnaire for the values correction. So this question is something like this: thinking of new ideas, being creative, important to her. Now somebody, the participant has to think how much he or she likely to this, ideology or philosophy in his or her life, and they have to mark in the Likert scale how likely they are, 6, 1, 2, 4, etc. So they have to give this answer to all the questions. There's a 50-item questionnaire. We also ask people to give their Twitter handle so that we can browse the data. We also created another app to get their Facebook data, and we also asked them to write about their personality in their opinion, in their words, and also about their values and ethics in their words. So we have 3 kinds of data: Twitter, Facebook, and essays, and also their personalities and values by this question. So how do you calculate the score? How it works? For this kind of questionnaire, for a given particular dimension, let's say achievement, there are already some questions. Although it's not known to the participant, but we know that. So we have to get the mean of all these dimensions. What we got is something distributed score, something like this. We normalized that and we got a score range of -1 to 1. So now we have their score for their personalities and values, and we have their social media. Now the task is to have to create some kind of NLP model on this data which can predict the scores or the classes. You can ask me a question anytime if you have. So what we did, based on the score variation, we said we break all the dimension into two classes. Anything greater than 0, we say it's a yes class. Anything less than 0, we say it's a no class. So achievement yes or achievement no. So given the classifier has to predict whether a given person is open or not open, kind of binary classifier. So this is the all data statistics we have. For personality, we have around 250 users data from Facebook. For values and ethics, we have this data, 367 Twitter data, 500 Facebook data, and so on. So this is the whole data set we have collected through Amazon Mechanical Turk. Now let me tell you, making an NLP model for this kind of setup is very complex or very challenging. Why? Because this kind of model gives fuzzy distribution. What is that? Let's say if I go to a psychologist and he do the analysis on me and he will say, Amitabh, you are 20% open, 30% conscientious, and let's say 80% neurotic, something like that. So they believe in real number and the fuzziness. So we are not only one-dimensional, but we have the characteristic into multi-dimensional. To understand how this dimension overlap with each other, we created this Sarko's figure. So here you can see possibly the agreeable people, the thickness of this band is showing lower correlation, or the thickness, if it is much thicker, then it is showing the higher correlation. So what we found, neurotic people who are highly sentimental, they are not agreeable. Makes sense. Because who are highly sentimental, they will not tend to agree with many people all the time. On the other hand, open people are conscientious, or vice versa. Conscientious people are open and so on. We did the similar analysis for the values as well, and we found several interesting outcomes here as well. For example, let's say conformity yes people. Conformity in a sense, the people who actually follow rules blindly. They are traditional. See the correlation here. Whereas you see power-oriented people, also highly achievement-oriented and so on. So there are overlapping between these classes, and that makes this kind of computational model more complex to design. Then we started creating feature engineering, how we can create features and we can make NLP models so that we can predict personalities and value of this kind of from this kind of data. So what we started with, my phone, sorry. So we started with Luke. Luke has been designed by James Pennebaker from UT Austin. So it's a dictionary. Dictionary has 70 categories and almost 2,300 words. So these 69 or 70 categories are something like this. So let's say preposition, space, up, time, occupation, achievement, and so on. So it has 70 categories. So what we started looking at, we look at somebody's social media profile and started understanding what are the this typographic distribution of some person into these 70 classes. How many preposition he or she used, how many space little word he or she used. So the frequency, simple frequency based vector. And we had the scores as well, and then we did Pearson correlation with the Liu vector and the score vector. And we got several correlation like this. This figure is showing high or low correlation based on this feature and values category. So what we can observe here, see, self-directed people are using a lot of exclusive word. Exclusive word means they are very particular about things. This, that fine morning at 8 p.m. So they are very particular about various things. On the other hand, they are using a lot of negative words because they try to give rationale to the world why they are self-directed, why they don't like rules set up by XYZ. So they are using a lot of negative words. On the other hand, see at power-oriented people, they are not using a lot of sentimental words, which also makes sense because they don't care about sentiment. But whereas if you see benevolent people, they are using a lot of sentimental words. They care about people's sentiment. So this creates a nice feature vector which gives us idea what are the cues to understand people personalities and habits, at least at word level. Similar analogy we found from here. Now if you say, let's say traditional people, they are using a lot of religious and metaphorical words. Whereas, let's say power-oriented people and hedonic people, they are not using metaphorical or religious words. So this correlation gave us understanding what kind of language people speak based on their personality and their societal structure. So we made feature vector. For each dimension, we took distinct feature to create the classifier, and we have different numbers. What interestingly we got, non-content words. Content words. There are 4 part of each category called content words: noun, verb, adjective, etc., which actually give the meaning of the sentence of any text. But non-content words like pronoun, adjective, symbols are actually better cue for our classifier. But that gives us, for example, how people talk, what kind of pronoun they use. Is a person always talk about I and I? Didn't he talk about we, you and other things? Then possibly he is more self-centered. So how people talk, how people write, that actually reflects their personality. And also sometimes people ask me, what if somebody is actually acting in social media? Those questions I believe will be coming in few minutes possibly from audience. So what I'll give answer to that question is, if we start creating feature vector from this kind of words, people cannot lie. Because that is people doing by their intrinsic nature. People cannot lie there until unless he or she is a very trained linguist or so on. So we got better feature vector from there. We got sentiment lexicon called Harvard General Equator. So it has several categories, for example, strong, weak, pleasure, pain, virtue, and several other sentiment categories it has. So we have seen what is the feature, frequency distribution into all these classes. We added that into feature vector. Another interesting feature we have used called sensicon. It's very interesting. You know about punch and do, right? So to get the sense of something, we have to use our 5 basic senses. So this lexicon has a probability score for each particular concept. For example, apple. If you need to experience apple, you have to possibly see it, touch it, taste it, and smell it. And what are the probability distribution to experience the apple? For each word it has. So what we examine for our personalities and habits classes, we wanted to understand, given a particular personality type, he or she is biased towards which particular sense. Let's say open person possibly using more seeing activities, or let's say conscientious people are using more touching activities or something like that. So we wanted to understand what is the distribution. So we created this distribution and made a feature vector. Then we have used cognitive feature. This cognitive feature actually comes from very old experiment by University of Oxford in 1988. It's called MRC. So you know anagram, right? You possibly have tried solving various anagrams. Now given an anagram, how much time you are taking to solve it? That will giving you idea how familiar you are with that particular concept of the word. And the imagery. Let's say I give you one example. Let's say I talk about Shimla. Then definitely you'll be thinking about the scenery, the hill station, snowman, etc. To understand that concept, you have to image something. So all these cognitive features are associated with this lexicon and some probability score. So this is coming from actually, as I said, anagram solving. So we added all these features into our feature vector again. So familiarity, completeness, imagery, and age of acquisition. Then we believe how we talk, that's actually a clue of our personalities and values. For example, if as a person I all the time give opinion on others, then I'm a different kind of person. Do I say enough thank you to people? Do I ask enough questions? Or all the time I'm silent? So how I speak, that is actually connected with my personality and my societal belief. So what we started doing, we started understanding the speech acts of people. Speech act says, given a sentence, while we are doing any conversation, what is the category? Is it opinion, non-opinion, WH question, statement opinion, thanking, minister, or other things? So what we see, we created another feature vector and the distribution. So what are the distribution of a given person in these all 11 speech act classes? And we added that as a feature vector. So what we got, this kind of accuracy is in support vector machine, 0.80 and 0.94 for personalities and values classes. This is the F score for these two classifiers. Now, this is the NLP part. Now we started applying all this NLP model to solve real life problems. We started with community detection. Have you heard the problem called community detection before? At least anyone? No, it is two. Okay, so the idea is, if you look at any social media, so let's say I'm the user, so I'm connected with several communities in my social media. Let's say my high school friend, my family members, and several other things, right? So the task of the community detection is to identify all these communities by looking at the network structure. So there is a standard dataset available from the University of Stanford. So it's called SNAP dataset. It has around 5,000 communities, and all those communities are manually marked. It's on Twitter. So we took this dataset, and another algorithm developed by the same, on the same corpus by Stanford University, same group, called Cessna, which was reported highest accurate system on the same dataset. So that algorithm only looks at the topology of the network. So which node is there, how nodes are connected, what is their link, and all those things. What we did not do anything very smart or very complicated thing. We did very simple thing. We took the network information, like the session does, and we added our personality and values feature as a feature vector. So only 15 features are there. We added that feature or the vector as a user information to the system in the same algorithm. We did not do any change in the system algorithm. So what we got nice accuracy gain. Let me tell you, Cessna was the best performing system almost last 5 years for this data set. And we got this accuracy gain over all the metrics which is known to be the good metrics for community detection. Although F score is not known to be the best metric for the community detection. Sorry. So we got accuracy gain here, and we published this paper in AAAI this year, and we really got excited. This kind of models are actually working. So then we started realizing, or we wanted to understand why this is happening. We just added one feature vector, and we got accuracy gain without doing anything. Why this is happening? So to understand, let me give you a toy example here. There is a famous concept called homophilia and heterophilia. So homophilia means the people are same-minded. Heterophilia means they don't think in the same line or something like that. So let's say we have a community of 10 users, user 1 to 10, and we have the score for their values, achievement, verifier, and so on. So what we started doing, we started calculating entropy, row wise. So what we got, if you look at all the entropy score here, you can possibly see the entropy score for this particular row achievement is the lowest one actually. So why this is, and what this is implying actually, this is possibly implying all these users are together in a community because they are all achievement oriented. That's why their score for achievement orientation is so nearby, and that's why the entropy score is so low. So possibly the reason of them binding together is their achievement orientedness. As I also said earlier, there is a fuzzy nature. You can also say they are also self-directed and stimulation oriented because the score for this two dimension is also lower relatively. But this is the major dimension for this community. And we can say this is achievement oriented community. Using this problem definition, we analyze the whole data. What we got, again very interesting, we got power-oriented people have always problem to mingle with any oriented group. So their entropy score is always high. Makes sense. They can't manage themselves in any group. Traditional oriented people also have the same problem. They can't manage. On the other hand, self-directed people can't manage themselves into conformity. Also makes sense because conformity people are the people who follow rules and self-directed people don't like rules. So they have a clash. And also self-enhancement people having problem into achievement-oriented people. Also makes sense because self-enhancement people always find enhancement for only themselves. Achievement-oriented people actually believe in achieving together. So this kind of deeper societal understanding we got from this analysis. Although we know this by our daily activity, cognitive sense and social cognition, but also the empirical result is also proving that. We did similar analysis for personality versus personality. We found open people having no problem almost to mingle in any group. They can manage themselves. Similarly, conscientious people having problem in the open group, extrovert people also having some problem in the open group. So this is the societal atlas, you can say. How society forms, what kind of people come together and make communities. So that's our contribution to the research, because otherwise the earlier research have been only talking about topology, users and network. We believe this personality and the personal level sentiment and societal level sentiment brings the new angle to the problem. Then we go ahead and we wanted to understand again bigger picture than this. We started analyzing sentiment of cities. So what we did, we collected data from 20 popular cities in India, Twitter data. We collected a lot of almost 5,000 users per city, and we make sure every user has at least more than 500 tweets and so on. And we calculated their values and ethics, and we clubbed them together in these 4 super classes, as I earlier mentioned. So what we found, again interesting, so we found Banaras is the most conservative place in the country, which makes sense. Let us see at Delhi. Delhi is also somehow conservative by our analysis. And the self-transcendence is not that good. I mean, Delhi people don't care about others. And self-enhancement is also lower. But if we look at the western part of the country, all these cities, from smaller towns, cities, to big towns, Mumbai, Pune, Ahmedabad, Goa, and so on, self-enhancement is much higher in that part of the country. If you go to Kolkata, conservation is also high, but self-transcendence is quite higher comparatively than Delhi. Self-enhancement is also higher. Let us look at the Bangalore city and the tech city of the country. Well, conservation is very, very low, transcendence is quite higher, enhancement is okay, around 50% so on. And many times, wherever, which social media conference I go or something like that, a common question is being asked, what is the guarantee that social media is reflecting the actual society? It's a common controversial or criticism people do about social media research and so on. So I believe this kind of analysis is an partial answer to that kind of problem. I'm not saying we are getting the real reflection of the society, but somehow it is of the similar line. We are not getting very different picture in social media. We did similar analysis based on US as well. And what we got, again very interesting, we got all the bigger locations, Portland, Oregon, San Jose, Chicago, Boston, New York, all the big cities, Kansas, etc. Florida. People are filled up with power and achievement orientation, mostly, statistically. And if we start going inside the countryside and other people, then we started getting more positive people who actually care about their neighbors, their surroundings, and so on. And Hawaii is the most heroic place in US. Well, this city and achievement power orientation possibly common for any society. If you start doing in India or any other country, we will get similar result like this. And then we are now doing the analysis again. We are comparing India versus US, cultural difference and so on. This kind of models we are now using to predict advertisement and several other stuff. Now, we started understanding person level optimism, pessimism and the influencing factor on that. I always give this example to my students. For example, if now I am deported to Namibia for 5 years and I don't have internet connection, phone connection and so so on, will I remain optimist after 5 years as a patient? Possibly I can't. So person level optimism, pessimism actually depended on my personality and also the surrounding I am living in. So you wanted to understand how optimism, pessimism is getting influenced by personalities and the societal sentiment. So text-based optimism, pessimism has been defined by Radha Nielsen, one of my collaborators from University of Michigan last year. So the idea is optimism is different than the positivity. For example, this is a positive statement. Prettiest phone ever, I love it, and so on. But it's not an optimist statement. Optimist statement is something like this: be positive, think positive, and so on. So she made a classifier, or she and her team made a classifier to define optimism, pessimism at a quick level. Clubbed them up. They created a spectrum. The top user they said optimist user, bottom user they said pessimist user. So we classified. We took their classifier and we classified people into optimist and pessimist. Then we started understanding, we clubbed 3 classified, text-based classifier together: optimism, pessimism, personalities, and values. Then we wanted to understand what kind of people remain optimist or pessimist in what kind of group. For example, we got agreeable people remain optimist in almost all kinds of groups, either benevolent, conformity, power-oriented, except the traditional group. Where optimism go down. We have some problem with the data universalism. I don't know, I have to see it again. Similarly, open people, they remain optimists in many groups except traditional group, power-oriented group, and the benevolent group. So it gives us kind of life satisfaction map. Each year or each 3 years actually who publish life satisfaction report, World Health Organization. And then all the Scandinavian countries nowadays is becoming first, second, third, or something like that. So this is giving us some kind of idea what kind of people remain optimist and pessimist and positive about life in what kind of setup. So we got this kind of map. Then we started looking at community evolution. What is community evolution? In the social graph or the social network actually evolved with time. Somebody joined some group, leave the group, and join other group, and so on. So this is a basic idea actually generated by Conway long back, permanence. So the idea is, let's say I'm this user, and I'm connected with multiple groups here. And over time I can possibly change my membership from this group to that group or that group or that group. So now the question is, wanted to understand why this is happening. There are various, this is not a new research topic. People have been working on this. Why this is happening, how this is happening. So there are mathematical models for this. Our research was to understand why this is happening. What kind of sentimental theory behind it. What kind of people choosing, what kind of people over. So what we found is very interesting. We found the group sustenance actually depending on the overall optimism, pessimism level. So if some group is highly optimist, that group is going to break soon. And typically happen youngster like college days, school days, and etc. So highly optimistic, that means you are not experienced and you are trying something impossible and you are failing too soon. And pessimist group also break to very quickly because they are too negative or bitter about life, they won't try anything new. Also it breaks. So what we found is right combination of optimist and pessimist in a community, the sustenance actually increases. Then whatever I told so far, all are the building blocks in computational social science using NLP models. Then we started applying those models into a bigger problem. So let me play a video that will set up the ground, and then I'll be talking about our research.
This coming weekend marks 15 years since the 9/11 attacks. We'll spend time in the coming days showing how the U.S. is pursuing its campaign against terrorism. Also, the state of the war in Afghanistan and the lives of its people. But we begin first with the first of a two-part series from Miles O'Brien on the technological evolution of terrorism and those attacking. It's the focus of the film he produced for the PBS program Nova, premiering tomorrow night. 15 years of terror. Tonight, an inside look at the changing face of counterterrorism.
This is the room 9/11 built, the operations center at the National Counterterrorism Center just outside Washington, D.C.
On a 24/7 basis, we have officers here working in shifts who are consuming, reading, analyzing, and assessing every bit of available information that there is to try to figure out what terrorist threats are aimed at the United States.
Nick Rasmussen is the director here. The agency itself, and this room in particular, were created to encourage the myriad of intelligence, military, and law enforcement organizations involved in national security to share classified information. This is where they try to connect the dots.
So there are probably officers in NCTC from 17 or 18 different government organizations all across the government. Basically every 3 or 4 letter agency that you could probably name, we probably have somebody here at NCTC serving from that organization on a 1 or 2 or 3 year assignment.
The nature of the work here has changed dramatically in recent years.
These folks can get radicalized by one group and the baton can be passed to another group.
The FBI had this man on its radar as early as 2013.
More lone wolves, fewer face-to-face meetings and phone calls. The internet as a source of inspiration and planning.
Self-radicalization doesn't have to take many months or many years.
Increasingly what connecting the dots means to me is dealing with the huge volume of publicly available or open source or unclassified information that's out there that may have terrorism relevance. And the work we're doing now with our partners in the intelligence community often doesn't involve really sensitive intelligence. It involves looking at Twitter or looking at some other social media platform and trying to figure out who that individual behind that screen name, behind that handle might actually be, and whether that person poses a threat to the United States.
The term of art in the world of espionage is SOCMINT, Social Media Intelligence, a rapid tracking capability built into their mobile phones.
Some, I think, do it by error, so they don't realize that their phone is broadcasting the information, or they simply don't care. So when we look at Raqqa and Mosul over the last year, there was lots of content, lots of geolocated content coming out of those areas.
The technology makes it easy for anyone to track a terrorist.
If he broadcasts from Raqqa, and then I again see him in Turkey, and then I again see him moving into Europe, well, this is a way that we can potentially interdict with somebody that may be looking to do an attack.
That, combined with some selfies, might provide plenty of intelligence needed for targeting.
If you're looking for a drone attack and you're seeing where they're going for morning coffee, Twitter could tell you.
When it comes to terror, the problem isn't a lack of data. It is separating the wheat from the chaff.
If you look at the Orlando shooting or Baton Rouge or the recent cases in Germany and France, just because the government has all this data doesn't mean they have the capacity to analyze all that data. So how do you then go and make a determination as to whether that person poses a threat to the public?
With so many electronic breadcrumbs scattered out in the open, couldn't it be possible for computer scientists to harness the right combination of software and hardware to find them?
Where are you?
And make pre-crime arrests, as depicted in the 2002 movie Minority Report.
I'm placing you under arrest for future murder, Sarah Marks and Donald Dooming to take place today, April 22nd, at 0800 hours.
Provocative, dark science fiction now, but maybe not forever. At the University of Maryland, computer scientist V.S. Supermanian is applying a big data approach to fighting terror. He's trying to put more objective analysis into decisions about which terrorists to target.
I'm a scientist, and when somebody says we degraded Al-Qaeda by taking person X out, if I can't measure it, I don't believe it.
He and his team focused on the Islamic terror organization Lashkar-e-Taiba, the group responsible for the 2008 attacks on Mumbai. A dozen coordinated shootings and bombings lasting 4 days that killed more than 160 people.
So what you see here is the terrorist network corresponding to the terrorist group Lashkar-e-Taiba. And each node that you see here corresponds to an individual.
They compiled 21 years of data on the group and its actions. All of it is fed into some sophisticated software, an algorithm that he calls STONE, for Shaping Terrorist Organization Network Efficacy. It's a schematic of a terrorist network, identifying individuals, subgroups, and affiliations. The software assigns a number to measure the lethality of the terror organization. The higher the number, the more dangerous it is.
Let's take a look at the leader of the group here, number 1. If you right-click on him, we will see some information about him.
He is Hafiz Muhammad Saeed, a man with a $10 million bounty on his head.
Let's pretend we are in the role of an analyst and we're considering the consequences of targeting him and removing him from the network.
Here's what's surprising. The software predicts if you take out the boss, the lethality of the terror group actually goes up.
You may be faced with a situation where the new leader is either much more aggressive about carrying out operations, or much better liked, or much more competent in carrying out his operation.
But what would happen if Saeed's 3 top deputies were all taken out? The number goes way down. Lashkar-e-Taiba becomes much less of a threat.
You can have a much more efficient counterterrorism operation that significantly weakens a group by targeting just the right people.
So, could the same software one day predict an attack? Is it possible to identify surefire signals of trouble ahead? Sort of.
We could have predicted the Mumbai attacks. However, we could not have predicted exactly where they would have occurred. So we can say things like, we expect these kinds of targets to be hit in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 months. But we cannot say this specific target will be hit in the next 1, 2, 3, 4 months.
Not as accurate as a hurricane prediction, but human nature may be the perfect storm of unpredictability.
Well, this video set up the ground. So not only in the US, but also in India, people are now feeling we need to actually monitor social media. So this is the UN representative from India, Mr. Saeed Akbaruddin, who mentioned that in the UN meeting in 2016, he said there is a need to monitor social media carefully with due safeguard for respecting freedom of expression. So all these things are happening within social media. So let me show you some shocking statistics and other data. So ISIS kind of organization are posting this kind of ad in social media to recruit people. This is a very simple ad. What they are trying to portray in this advertisement, they are saying, well, come here and we have a beautiful life for you. And we have a lot of wealth to give you, to offer. So these are the ads which they are posting in social media. Let me shock you by these statistics. Well, this is the statistic reported by Heritage Organization in 2014, little older, 3 years older. So it says the recruitment by ISIs from different countries. Let us try to look at the all Western established countries, wealthy than us. So US got 250 recruitment by ISIs. Well, let us look at Germany, 700 recruitment. UK 700. Well, Belgium 380. Let's say Netherlands 190. Sweden 150, and so on. So this recruitment story is going over. India is not in the list because India only got 50 recruitment so far by official means. We don't know how many unofficial recruitment are there. But by official statistics, only 50 people got recruited. And looking at our population size, 50 might be a small number, but looking at the recent history, you have learned what a lone wolf can do, either in Nice or in Sweden or recently in Las Vegas. So according to NIS statistics, Kerala is the most vulnerable state for the recruitment. West Bengal is the second one, third one is UP, and the fourth one is Bihar. And in every day almost, I do follow all these news. In September 18th, actually was sleeper cell got caught from Chennai, who are affiliated with the ISIS. 10 people got caught. And there are several other stories coming in news channel every day almost. So to understand all these things, how things are happening, who are the people, who are getting recruited and so on, we started collecting data. Well, this is the page. You can even check now if you have internet connection. This is the control section. This is an anonymous page. Somebody, something very important people who are managing this. So they keep posting all the account by ISIS. ISIS is representative account, not the followers. The ISIS agents account, they keep posting in almost 1 or 2 hours. And what Twitter do unofficially, again, whatever things, Twitter actually block those accounts by 1 or 2 hours. And in this 1 or 2 hours actually we collected for our research. So this has happened. So you can start looking at this page. So we collected almost 7,000 ISIS representative account, and they are 2 hop network, almost 88,000 users data, and which is around 600 GB of data, including video, image, network, text, etc. It's a very big data. So the 2 questions we wanted to understand, this is still ongoing research. We are doing many things on this. The first question we wanted to understand, can we predict who is going to be recruited next? That's the first question. The second question is the bigger. So can we understand what are the socio-psychological reasons people are actually getting lured into this kind of activity? Who are the people? What kind of education background they have, what kind of social background they have, what kind of person they are, so on. So what we did, so whatever NLP method we applied or we created so far, to understand personality, society, and etc., we started applying on those data. Because none of the secret conversation happened in social media. Because there is a recent report by this after this September 18, the people go into Telegram kind of paid service where they do all this conversation. Only what happened, the basic baptization or the brainwashing happened in social media. So we applied this model on this data: personality, values and ethics, optimism, pessimism, age and gender. Also, let me tell you, what people write in their age and gender column in social media is not trustworthy. So we have classifier for that, which is somehow accurate, 70-80% accurate. By looking at the text, we try to tell what is the age and gender of the given person. Then, on the 7,000 account, ISIS representative, we started looking at highly connected nodes by this beginning centrality. So what are the nodes connected with more than one ISIS representative, is the high, centrality node and so on. And we analyzed all their socio-psychological background using our classifier. What we got, we found they are highly sentimental. They are following rules blindly. They are conform people. They are extroverts, so they are not introverts. So they go out and talk with people for their reason and so on. Also in the personality, values analysis, we got their achievement oriented. They are highly power oriented. Also, they talk only about their society and their economy. They are highly pessimist, almost 78%. And the age group distribution is something 18 to 34, because the people they can recruit and they can use it for their purpose. And obviously, this is a highly male-oriented community, the ISIS community and so on. So this is the basic observation we got from this analysis. So what we did in our recent one paper in Assuran, we said this psychosociological distortment would be a predictor to identify who are the most vulnerable node to be recruited. So this is the graph we're showing the spikes here. We also compared this graph with the random 20,000 people to show these spikes are actually statistically significant. So we took 20,000 users randomly choose from Twitter and showed what are the difference. So this is not the end, this is the start. So we are working on various other things here. So let me jump into this. As social media is very dynamic and all this recruitment happening dynamically, all these ISIS agent nodes are getting deleted almost in 2-3 hours. They again come back, again connect to people and so on. To understand the bigger question, what are the people, what are the region is more vulnerable for this recruitment, we are creating an index called Social Vulnerability Index. ISIS representative node will be deleted. They will be coming back, will be connected to whom?